Hi everyone, Nick here, and today we're looking back at another F1 2020 league race. And this time it's round 6 of season 4 of the Serious Racing League, and we're at the Shanghai International Circuit, home of the Chinese Grand Prix. And this one can probably be filed alongside Bahrain as a track that I am not amazingly good at and very rarely have any good results at. But as ever, at the moment, I'm feeling reasonably confident that I'm doing pretty well driving wise. I mean, I've obviously had 2 wins already this season from 5 races. That's good. So even though I was by no means expecting to win this race, I thought maybe we can get a good result. Maybe we can get a podium. That would basically be a win for me, especially seeing as we had Chiz back in the league and he's a former champion from previous seasons. So it's going to be even more difficult to get that top spot. Another thing that was going to make it more difficult to get that top spot was the weather. So the race itself was going to be starting in heavy rain conditions, going on for a bit and then eventually drying out. But also qualifying was going to start off dry, but then after a little bit, 15 minutes apparently, was going to start raining. So we needed to get out there ASAP, and well, you know the weather on this game. This ended up being our only lap because of weather. So into turn 1, and here you kind of you lightly brake and also just go down the gears and just let it just naturally slow down. Get that sort of apex and then try and turn in here, and it's all very clumsy, I find, until you can try and get out of here on the throttle and launch it down to the right hand hairpin. So we try and brake around 100 meters down to 3rd gear, try and get it turned in nice and straight so that we can try and be through these fast left right section as fast as possible, carry as much speed. But at this point we're being a bit cautious because it does feel like it's starting to lose a bit of grip because of the rain already. So that's not ideal, and this bit of a track is one I struggle with, trying to get out of that last corner as early as possible onto the throttle. We brake quite early there. We get the car turned for the long right-hander. We can already see spots of rain on the camera, so that is coming down, and we're going to be a little bit careful here. Try and get on the throttle as early as possible through the long right-hander. Difficult enough as it is, let alone with a slightly slippery track. You can see the times are pouring in at the top. We're going to try and pick our braking point just before 100 meters, get the car turned, we hit the apex nicely, try and get the throttle on as early as possible, and we're going to launch it through the final left hand corner. Do not invalidate there because it's our only representative lap, and we cross the line. We do a 1:31.155, which at the time was good enough for 7th place, and because it was raining no one was able to really improve. I decided though that it was a good idea maybe to go out. We had intermediate conditions, so I thought it was a good idea to, we knew there was going to be at least heavy rain, so there's probably going to be some intermediate conditions in the actual race itself to get a bit of practice in. But that went really well when I took a bit too much accelerator, a bit too much curb there, and then lost a front left wheel. But as I say, I've already set my lap and we're already 7th on the grid, so it didn't really make any difference apart from maybe causing some hassle for our virtual mechanics. One thing that also helped us out is that both Miles and Rye had 5-place grid penalties ahead of us for crashing into each other. Can't exactly remember what, but I'm sure it was pretty comical, and that meant we were actually going to start in 5th place, which I think is not the end of the world. So into a race then, and we're going to be starting on full wets, 5 lights, they're gone, we are go. And we get an okay start. We actually get a better start than Maxi on the right hand side, and we're up into 4th momentarily, but then he's going to have the inside line to turn 1, and we're a little bit cautious, and because of that it allows Coulthard to go up the inside as well, and that wasn't ideal. And we've kind of left a door open as well, and Beckford's basically thinking, can I have that? We got up the inside of the 2nd corner, which means we've got the left hand side, but we're very cautious because we don't want to light the tyres up as Blarg has done ahead of us and then spun. But it meant that Beckford was able to get a better exit, and that means that net, even though Blarg had that spin, we lost 2 places to cars overtaking us, so we're now down into 6th. And at this point it was, well, as you can see, quite difficult conditions. It's quite difficult to really see anyone, and I was essentially just trying to make sure that I didn't have any contact. I just wanted to get through these early laps because it was going to dry out. I had gone for a full dry setup. I hadn't done any compromises or anything like that, and because of that I wasn't super confident in the wet weather conditions. But then on this game, the dry and wet setups aren't actually that far apart nowadays, and I don't think they are in real life Formula 1 either. I don't think you have such a thing as a pure wet and a pure dry setup anymore, but that's is what it is. We're doing okay at this point. We haven't crashed. We had a bit of a little wobble through the fast right-hander, which I refuse to learn the name or the number of, and yeah, it's, as always with me, kind of a steady first lap, which is kind of a good idea in changeable conditions, but also we have lost a place, so I don't know, it's probably better than it could have been, but it probably could have gone a bit better than it did in the end. And not a huge amount really happened over the course of the first stint really on the full wets. Gap front was about a second, gap behind was about a second. Fortunately Maxi lost it where we lost it in qualifying, and that put us back up into 5th place, so back where we started. But we didn't really have the pace here. We didn't have the pace at this point to really do anything about the cars in front or the ones behind. So if I wasn't going to have a pace, maybe I could try and use my brain. So halfway around lap 7 I did a weather report check, and Jeff said it was hard to say whether Inters or wets are the fastest tyre, and I didn't feel super happy on my tyres. I felt like they were maybe a bit too much for the weather conditions, and other people have mentioned a couple of things. So I thought, do you know what? Why don't we gamble? If Jeff's saying it's around the crossover, why don't we just be one of the first people on intermediate tyres? Maybe what we can do is we can put in a decent lap while everyone else works out that actually maybe Inters is the way to go, and then we can maybe use that to get a couple of seconds, and that could potentially jump us ahead of Coulthard and Beckford. Unfortunately for us, literally the second that we came into the pits to do that absolute galaxy brain strategy, we had a safety car. And this was not very good because it meant that everyone behind was going to go, okay, well, it's obviously going to be intermediates by the time this safety car comes in, so let's go on to Inters. And everyone in front of me was then going to pit for intermediate tyres when they came round on the next lap to do the exact same thing. And yeah, it basically meant that nothing happened whatsoever. So we came out of the pits in 7th place, and then the next time round the people in front had all decided to pit as expected, and we were able to jump Miles and Jerome and go back up into 5th place. So that completely ruined any attempts at using an undercut on intermediates. Brilliant. Love the safety car. It's really good. So end of lap 10 we have a safety car restart, and this is going to be our first flying lap on the race on intermediates, and we're hoping it's going to go a little bit better than it had done in qualifying when we'd had our practice. And you can see in front CJ's having a bit of a wobble through the first couple of corners, but we're nowhere near close enough to actually do anything to it, and we are just trying to be cautious. You know, it's a long race. We don't know how long we're going to be on these intermediate tyres for, so we want to make sure we don't burn them out or anything like that. We don't want to spin. I mean, we just restarted behind a safety car, so the pack is reasonably close. So if we were to spin and then lose a bit of time, that could be 10-12 places. That could be absolutely catastrophic for our race. However, it wasn't really ideal because, as you can see here, we're losing a decent amount of time to the cars in front, definitely dropping back from them a lot faster than we did when we started the race on wets. And I don't know whether that's because I just had little confidence or just wasn't up to speed as much as the cars in front, or whether they just switched their tyres on immediately or just had lots of confidence. I'm not really sure, but you can see that they're like, I mean, Beckford is in 3rd and he's nearly 3 seconds ahead of me already. CJ's nearly 2 seconds, and Holm behind me is less than a second. And at this point I'm thinking, yeah, okay, well, we're going to have to use rich fuel, we're going to have to use EOS just to make sure that he can't send it. But he's still getting a tow, and it's getting really, really close. It's like 3/10 now, you can see, coming into the hairpin. We brake nice and late, we make sure that we get the car turned in, get close enough to the apex, get the car turned, and then we can head off down towards a final corner and just try and basically hold the place, and then make sure that we can maybe we can ease our way into the race and start coming back at the cars in front of us as the rain goes away a little bit over the laps. However, that didn't really work, as by the start of lap 17 you can see we're about 5 seconds behind the cars in front, and we've got a couple of seconds gap to Hom behind, and it's definitely drying out, but it didn't really help. And weirdly, I felt like my pace was getting worse the drier the track got, which, given I was on a dry strategy, made no sense whatsoever. But DOS was enabled on lap 17, which means it's time to come into the pits, and although that is a good sign to help you determine when you need to come in, it basically, again, completely robs you of any decisions, because everyone, literally everyone, pitted on the same lap. And the only question was, did you go soft or did you go mediums? I decided to go softs, but any advantage to get from that was ruined because I just got held in the pits for ages and lost at least 5 or 6 seconds to the cars in front. So, you know, I was gone for softs, gone aggressive to try and attack early on in the stint, and I can't do that because I've lost a heap of time. And yeah, that was essentially the race over, really, wasn't it? A little bit later round that lap, we had a virtual safety car after Maxi unfortunately retired, but there was no point to that because everyone had just pitted, so it didn't really make any difference. And that final stint was essentially just trying not to get overtaken by Hom behind, really. The softs probably weren't the ideal tyre to be on because they did start to get a little bit worn towards the end of the stint. The mediums were pretty decent, the pace was never that bad, and they kind of held their pace as it went. But it didn't really make any difference whatsoever because we had a good enough gap over Hom behind, and the cars in front we were never going to get to. And you can see Beckford is now only about 5 seconds ahead of us, but he was cruising the last lap because he knew he had a comfortable buffer over me, who was the car behind. So what was the point in pushing? So there you go. We finished 5th, which is exactly where we started, and we overtook no cars that didn't crash. Possibly the most pointlessly boring race I've had on this game for a long time. But I suppose 5th isn't too bad. It means we're 26 points behind Tony in the championship. He didn't get the win though, so at least that's one thing, so it minimises the damage a little bit, I suppose. But yeah, it was not the most exciting of races, let's be honest. So, what have we learnt from the Chinese Grand Prix? I don't really know, really. I suppose one grumble I might have is how the DRS enabled thing, or disabled even as well, is a surefire sign of how to, or when to come in for intermediates or slicks when you're going from dry to wet or wet to dry, because it kind of means that no one really gambles. Everyone just sits there and waits to see when that comes up. That kind of robs us a little bit of tactics. And when we had the safety car ruined the wet inters as well, so that was a bit annoying again as well. And maybe it would be nice if people didn't get held up in the pits. But yeah, I don't know, just grumbles about my race is pretty much all I've learnt, really. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, then don't forget to use the old like button and the subscribe button, and why not give us a comment below on what you made of things. Helps out the channel massively and is humongously appreciated when you do so. So thank you very much in advance. If you want to catch up over on Twitter or Instagram, then I'm Alfred Bulbasaur on both of those places, details in the description below. And you can also watch these races live as they happen every Wednesday and Sunday over on Twitch. I'm also have ClubSport on there, so pop over there if you want to see all the action as it happens. But until next time and the next video, goodbye.